Hello, welcome to this session on consumer protection law and policy. As you all are aware that we all are consumers and are protected against defects in goods and deficiency in services by the Consumer Protection Act of 1986. Now, the Act of 1986 provides for better protection of consumers and sets up a three-tier redressal mechanism to resolve consumer disputes. This session will enable you to understand various provisions of the Consumer Protection Act of 1986, the 6 rights that have been enshrined under the Act, and also the way the redressal can be achieved by going to the three-tier redressal mechanism system. And it also gives you what are the benefits that this act provides to all of us as consumers. Now, if you look at the consumer protection history in India, it has been a very long history. Since the time of Arthashastra Chanakya, you see that we find that there have been very strict enforcement of acts for adulteration, less weight, and many of these things which were there, which the common people used. And even if you look at the British India, we had a large number of acts that came into being much before independence to protect the consumers, which were numerous laws like the Indian Penal Code, Sale of Goods Act, Drugs and Cosmetics Act, Agriculture Produce and Marketing Act. So we had many legislations that were protecting the consumer. And many of these have even continued after we achieved independence. But the problem was that none of these laws enshrined rights of consumers nor provided a swift remedy for redressal. So the consumer had to go to the district forum or to the district courts, and the court process were so lengthy and long that he would not get relief. The other problem was that these laws were mainly punitive in nature. They did not compensate for the loss that the consumer has suffered. Therefore, the consumer at the end would get nothing, but anyone who violated the law was imprisoned. So the compensation for the damage done to the consumer was not there. Therefore, in 1986, the Consumer Protection Act was enacted for better protection of the consumers. Now, what does this act essentially protect us against? It protects the consumers against 3 Ds. One is defects in goods. Suppose you buy any good or any product you have bought from the market and there is some defect in that. Now you have certain rights which you can exercise under this act and ensure that the product that you have bought is non-defective. So it essentially protects you against defect in goods. Deficiency in service, as you know, that due to globalization, liberalization, large number of service have been provided now, and the service sector is growing day by day. It's growing much larger. Therefore, if there is any deficiency in service, you are also can seek relief under the Consumer Protection Act. Now, service has been defined under the Consumer Protection Act, but it includes all services which are which come under the definition of service under the Consumer Protection Act. And thirdly, it protects against deception in trade practices or unfair trade practices that are very prevalent in the market mechanism. So if we look at the basic provisions of the Consumer Protection Act of 1986, it essentially aims at better protection of consumers. Now, the word better has been inserted in 1986 Act only to ensure that there were large number of legislations, but this legislation provides a better protection. So the word better is very important as in the 1986 Act. It gives us 6 rights, so every consumer has 6 rights. It also defines who is a consumer, and it gives 6 rights to the consumer, which we will see shortly that what are those 6 rights. It provides for a 3-tier structure to redress consumer complaints. So they are at the district level, the state level, and the national level. You have the structure where you can, a aggrieved consumer can go and file his complaint. So that is something which is very new. Now, if you look at the court processes, they're very lengthy, very long processes. So sometimes it happens that they just go on for a number of years. But here, the system of justice redressal has been very, very simple. It is based on principles of natural justice and summary procedure. So you don't have to apply Evidence Act, you don't have to apply CRPC, CP. These acts really are not to be applied here as per the regulations under the Act, that it has to be very simple. In fact, they should not look like courts. So that's the beauty of this Consumer Protection Act. It aims at speedy and inexpensive disposal of complaints. As you know, that looking from the experience of the civil courts, it has been ensured that you get justice within 3 months, where product testing is required, you get in 5 months. So 90 days or 3 months is a quick period that one consumer is entitled to get justice under the Act. It also provides for consumer protection councils at the national, state, and consumer level. So there is a 3-tier structure of the councils. Essentially, the councils are advisory bodies, so that they can advise at the district level, they can advise at the state level, and also at the national level of how to essentially strengthen the consumer movement and protect the consumers. So you have the redressal, 3-tier redressal, and you have a 3-tier structure that is based on the policy inputs that is to be given. And it covers all private sector, it covers the public sector, the cooperative sector is applicable to all sectors that is there. Now, one of the most fundamental issues in Consumer Protection Act is who is a consumer. Normally, we take it that anybody who consumes is a consumer, but to get relief under the Consumer Protection Act, the Act has defined as to who is a consumer. Now, let us understand who is a consumer. Any person who buys goods for a consideration which has been paid or partly paid and partly promised or under any system of deferred payment. So if you buy any product, or it also applies to services. If you buy any product or avail any service for consideration means payment. The payment can be cash payment, it can be deferred payment, it can be promised to pay, you issue a check, it can be installments. But unless there is a consideration, there is a transaction that has been taken place for the service that you have availed, you are not a consumer. So it includes any user of such goods other than person who buys goods for such use is made with the approval of any person, and it does not include a person who obtains it for a commercial purpose. So if you buy a product for commercial purpose, you cannot seek remedy under the Consumer Protection Act. Now, Consumer Protection Act essentially bars consumer promoting commercial activity. Now, if you look at the 6 rights, you have right to safety, right to be informed, right to choose, right to be heard, right to seek redressal, and right to consumer education. These are the 6 rights that the Consumer Protection Act has given. And if you look at the rights, the right to safety is a fundamental which essentially ensures that you get quality standard products in the market. It's your right to get a product which is safe. Hazardous products are not to be brought into the market, and so that's the one. Right to be informed is, whenever you buy any product or a service, you need to have all information before you make a decision. So the service providers or the producers are supposed to give you information that is there. So that's your right. The third is right to choose. The monopoly, in the monopoly economy, you did not have anything to choose. The choice was not yours. You had to avail a service from this service provider that was there. But now you have a variety of products, a variety of services which you can choose, and that's your right. Right to be heard is very fundamental, that whenever you have a problem, your problem should be heard and your grievances should be heard. And right to redressal is that you can, file your complaint and you can seek redressal of your problem. Now, right to education is also a very important right, because consumers need to be educated, made aware, empowered, so that they can take rational decision in the market. Now, once this is done, if you look at the sixth right, it really gives a holistic framework for consumer protection in the country. Now, we have also defined who is a consumer. Now, let us look who is a complainant, who can complain under the consumer protection law. Now, it gives five major areas where people can approach. One is the consumer who has purchased the product, he himself can go. Product or service, he himself can file a complaint if he is not satisfied. Any registered voluntary association, that is NGO, VCO, they can also approach on behalf of the consumer. The central or state government can also file a complaint. If you remember, in the Maggie case was the first case where the central government filed a complaint with the National Consumer Redressal Commission, stating that it has affected a large number of consumers, and therefore it's a class action suit that was taken up by the NCDRC. One or more consumers having common interests. Suppose there are a large number of consumers and they have suffered the same injury, a grievance, or whatever name you give it. Therefore, they can all come together and file a complaint. And third is, in case of death of a complainant, the legal heirs are entitled to file for compensation and take action against it. So, the complainant has also been defined under the Act. Now, what are the benefits of this Act? Every complaint shall be heard and disposed of within 90 days of filing. That is, 3 months after your filing, the complaint is to be redressed and heard. And if there is a need to test the product that you have bought, so it is sent to the lab, and once the reports are given, and that also time has been fixed that it should be done within a period of 5 months, 150 days. So therefore, this Act provides a time limit framework for redressal of consumer complaints. No fees for filing complaints up to 5 lakh. Therefore, if you have a compensation and the value you are asking for 5 lakhs, it's free. You don't have to. And the beauty of this Act is you need not engage lawyers. You can argue your own case. You can argue your own complaint in the district forum. You can go and file after filing complaint. So you don't have to waste money or spend money on litigation. So it's a kind of informal system where it's not that it functions like a court. It is different from a court. Compensation and relief is provided, what a consumer is entitled to, and depending upon the amount that you are asking for and the loss that you have suffered, the commissions and forums are supposed to give you. Now let us look at the structure of redressal mechanism. As I said, the Consumer Protection Act provides for a three-tier redressal mechanism. At the district level, you have the district forum. At the state level, you have the state commissions. And at the national level, you have national commissions to redress your grievances. At the district level, if your complaint is less than 20 lakh, the value of the product and compensation that you are asking is less than 20 lakhs, you have to file in the district forum. If it is more than 20 lakhs and less than 1 crore, you have to file in the state commission, which is normally in the state capitals, which is there. And if it is more than 1 crore, you come to the national commission. Now, the final the adjudication of the complaint goes to the Supreme Court, which is very rare. Only when there is some cases are very high profile cases and where legal interpretations, constitutional issues are there, then it goes to the Supreme Court. So these are the structures of redressal. At the district level, we have the district forum, then at the state we have state commission, and at the national we have the national commission, and then the Supreme Court. Now what is interesting in this, the whole procedure of redressal is the lower courts and the high courts have no jurisdiction over consumer related complaints if it is filed in the district forum. Now, as I said earlier, you have a three-structure consumer protection councils. They are at the district level protection council, where the collector is the chairman. At the State Consumer Protection Council, the Minister in charge of Consumer Affairs is the chairman. And you have the similar one at the national level, which is known as the Central Consumer Protection Council, where the Central Minister of Consumer Affairs is the chairman. It has a set procedure of meeting. It has to meet as often as possible, take up consumer issues. It is a representative body, so there are a large number of stakeholders who are made members of the Consumer Protection Council. Now, in spite of this act being a very important social welfare legislation, it's known as a milestone in the consumer movement. The Consumer International has also termed it as one of the best legislations in the country. But if you look at the functioning of the redressal mechanism, there are a large number of problems that are there, and consumers are really not getting the kind of redressal that they should get. Now, why is it happening that the Consumer Protection Act has not been able to protect the consumers? The Act is inadequate in dealing with new problems. As you know, this Act was enacted in 1986, and with the coming of globalization, information technology, liberalization, the problems have become different today. The consumers have changed, the markets have changed, and the kind of business that was being done is time. You have e-commerce, technology-driven systems are there, where if you look at the rules and procedures and laws, e-commerce is very difficult if you buy a product from some other country, because our laws apply only to within our country, that's the jurisdiction. So that is one major problem, that there's a big gap. Delay in disposal of complaints is there, even though the Act provides for 3 months and 5 months redressal period, but there is an enormous delay that is taking place. It has become very expensive because the lot of advocates have come into, and they take up the cases. Consumers also feel that it is they don't have time. They engage these advocates, and it started functioning more like a civil court. And other important thing is that it has become too technical now. Since the presidents of the district forum and the state commissions and the national commission, they come from the judicial background, they have been used to a different kind of application of law. So you see that the Evidence Act, CRPC, CPC, they have crept into the Consumer Protection Act, and that is making it very technical. Therefore, it functions like a civil court now, more or less. Lack of adequate infrastructure is one of the major causes for the inadequate functioning of the forums and the redressal mechanism. At many places, you don't have even basic infrastructure to meet the requirement. It also looks at the lack of qualified manpower, the skill, the technical capability of the manpower manning these institutions is also not good. But above all, if you look at the awareness about this Consumer Protection Act itself is so low, where the consumers in the country are do not have the requisite information of what are their rights, how do they agitate for rights, what is the compensation that they get, and where do they file a complaint. So therefore, the consumer awareness and education becomes much more important if you want the consumer protection to be successful. So in nutshell, the Consumer Protection Act is a welfare legislation aimed at protecting consumers, gives 6 rights, defines who is a consumer, provides for a redressal mechanism, and also provides for a compensation that is there. So this is the gambit in which we have the Consumer Protection Act of 1986. Thank you. I hope you will be able to understand in greater detail as we move ahead. Thank you.